Imagine a band puts out 2 albums. No big tours, no interviews, no music videos. They just disappear. No breakup announcement. No drama. Nothing. And then, 15 years later, strangers on the internet are paying $400 for their records. A new generation has fallen in love with their music. Their songs are going viral on TikTok. Millions of streams. And most of those listeners weren't even born when the band first existed. That's the story of Duster. And it might be the strangest second act in indie rock history. So, who is Duster? Duster is an American indie rock band from San Jose, California, formed in 1996. At their core, the band was built around 2 multi-instrumentalists, Clay Parton and Kanan Dove Amber. Later, drummer Jason Albertini joined and became a full creative partner. Duster makes the kind of music that has historically been unmainstream. Inspired by themes of space, their sound was sparse and lethargic, fuzzed out, hypnotic guitar riffs taking precedence over barely audible vocals and shuffling drums. Through their association with the 90s slowcore movement, the group found some critical acclaim for their music, which was recorded on cassette decks and had a lo-fi warmth that offset its overwhelming sense of loneliness. Slowcore. Lo-fi. Space rock. Those are the words critics use. But if you ask fans, they'll tell you it sounds like staring out a window on a rainy afternoon. Like nostalgia for a life you never lived. And that feeling, that very specific emotional frequency, is why people won't let this band go. To understand Duster, you have to understand where they came from, and what they were reacting against. San Jose, California. Mid-1990s, the city is surrounded by the energy of the tech boom, but Clay Parton and Kanan Dove Amber are moving in the opposite direction. Slower. Quieter. More inward. Prior to forming Duster, Parton and Amber were both in the frantically chaotic screamo group Mohinder. If you've ever heard Mohinder, aggressive, furious, post-hardcore, you'd find it almost impossible to connect that band to what Duster became. The same 2 people. Completely opposite sounds. Parton and Amber self-released 2 cassettes in 1996, On the Dodge and Christmas Dust, as well as a 7-inch titled transmission, Flux on Up Records, released in 1997. These weren't commercial releases. They were demos, passed around to friends, traded between music nerds. The band wasn't trying to break through, they were just making the music they wanted to hear. And then they went into their home studio, a place they called Low Space Orbit, and started working on something bigger. In February 1998, Duster released their debut album, Stratosphere. Written and recorded primarily by Clay Parton and Kanan Dove Amber, the album was produced at Low Space Orbit, the band's home studio, using analog equipment and a minimalist, lo-fi approach. Blending elements of space rock, slowcore, indie rock, and shoegaze, Stratosphere is characterized by its subdued vocals, sparse arrangements, and atmospheric textures. Stratosphere is a record that actually sounds better for having been largely recorded to 4-track. The clean guitar interplay takes on an additional feeling of audible warmth because it was captured on tape, while the distorted guitars maintain an enveloping fuzz. The album has 17 tracks. But don't let that number fool you, this isn't a dense record. It breathes. Songs like Gold Dust, Constellations, and Inside Out feel less like compositions and more like moods. Like entering a room and sensing something without knowing what it is. Echo, Bravo opens with this experimental edge, a phased filter over the drums, ringing feedback on guitars and other manipulations that make it sound like radio transmissions coming from Mars, before it explodes into distorted, sludgy, melodic chords and a slowcore rhythm. What's remarkable is that even though it was released in 1998, it has a sound that could have been released virtually any time later and still had its impact. The music feels timeless. But here's the thing, almost nobody heard it in 1998. Though it initially received little mainstream attention, the album later garnered recognition for its distinctive sound and emotive restraint, and has since been considered an influential work in the lo-fi and slowcore genres. The album appeared on the CMJ New Music Report's Top 200 chart in June 1998, indicating limited but notable airplay on college stations. Reviews emphasized the band's unassuming profile and the album's raw, hypnotic aesthetic over conventional polish, positioning it as an underground slowcore gem with untapped potential. That was it. No viral moment. No mainstream breakthrough. Duster went back to San Jose, and Stratosphere started collecting dust, literally and figuratively. In 1998, Jason Albertini joined as the band's drummer, playing on 3 songs for the debut album Stratosphere. Beginning with the 1999-1975 EP, Albertini became much more involved in the group's process, playing many more instruments and sharing recording and producing credits with Parton and Amber. By 2000's contemporary movement, he was fully involved in the creative process as a permanent member of the group. So by the time Duster started working on their sophomore album, they were a real trio, 3 voices, 3 creative minds, all pointing in the same direction. In 2000, Duster released their second album, Contemporary Movement. It's a more focused and slightly more structured affair than its predecessor, but it retains the band's signature melancholic haze. Tracks like Operations and Cooking showcase a refined songwriting approach. Shortly after its release, the band quietly went on an indefinite hiatus, leaving behind a small but near-perfect discography. No announcement. No goodbye. They just stopped. The band fell silent following the release and tour for the album, resurfacing in 2003 only for their first music video for Me and the Birds, from Contemporary Movement. In 2005, they played their final show and dissolved, with members moving on to focus on other projects. Clay Parton launched a side project. Jason Albertini began working on what would eventually become his band Helvetia. And Duster became a ghost. 2 albums. A handful of EPs. And then nothing. Here's where the story gets genuinely strange. The rise of the internet, music blogs, and file-sharing platforms in the 2000s gave their music a second life. A new generation of listeners discovered Stratosphere, and the band's legend grew exponentially. Duster's original vinyl records became collector's items. On platforms like Discogs, original vinyl releases of Stratosphere fetched prices exceeding $400 due to scarcity and growing demand. People who had never even seen a physical copy of the album were hunting for it desperately. Online communities formed around the band, people trading recordings, discussing the music, keeping the legend alive long after the band had stopped existing. And then came TikTok. The revival accelerated in the early 2020s through TikTok, where Gen Z audiences embraced Duster's escapist, nostalgic sound amid a broader resurgence of 1990s slowcore and shoegaze aesthetics, amassing 1.3 billion views under the hashtag Duster tag. 1.3 billion views. For a band that put out 2 albums and disappeared in 2000. Their popularity significantly increased in the 2020s due to song usage on the social media platform TikTok. Songs like Inside Out became the sonic backdrop for millions of aesthetic videos, Rain on Windows, Empty Highways, Late Night Drives. Duster's music, it turned out, was built for a generation that grew up online and was desperately searching for something that felt real and imperfect. Lo-fi warmth. Hazy guitars. Barely there vocals. That is the TikTok slowcore aesthetic. Duster invented it. They just invented it 25 years too early. On April 13, 2018, Duster posted via their Instagram page that they were recording a little bit. The internet lost its mind. A major reissue by Numero Group followed in 2019 with the Capsule Losing Contact box set, expanding from an initial run of 2,000 to 3,000 copies after the first batch sold out in a day, marking the band's first official catalog revival and prompting reunion performances in cities like New York and Portland. The box set included their entire discography, plus unreleased tracks and rarities. It was proof that the demand was real, not just online noise, but actual people willing to spend real money to hold Duster's music in their hands. Of their hiatus and subsequent reunion, Parton said, "When we took a break almost 2 decades ago, we didn't think it was going to all completely stop. We thought we could keep it drifting at least, maybe at a slower pace. But everything just went dark. We were always in touch and sometimes we'd talk about doing Duster things, but days just piled up. In recent years we've talked more seriously about at least doing another record." And they did make that record. On July 4, 2019, the band released their first standalone single in almost 20 years, Interstellar Tunnel, and subsequently announced their third self-titled studio album, which was released on December 13 that year. The self-titled album proved that the magic hadn't faded. The same hazy atmospheres. The same sense of space and melancholy. Just, updated, slightly. Older. Maybe a little wiser. Then in 2022, Duster surprise dropped a new album called Together, releasing it early on YouTube with each track getting an accompanying video. The album showcased 13 new songs emphasizing their slowcore and space rock elements. After Together, Jason Albertini stepped away from the band to focus on his own projects, leaving Parton and Amber as the core duo. But Duster didn't stop. Their fifth album, In Dreams, arrived as a surprise digital release on August 30, 2024, via Numero Group, with physical editions following in December. And in 2026, most recently, Duster announced a collaborative album called Crusher with slowcore band Dirty Art Club, released on April 3, 2026, under the Numero Group. They're still going. Quietly. On their own terms. As they always have been. So what is it about Duster? Why does a band that sold relatively few records in 1998 have over 1 billion TikTok views in the 2020s? Why are teenagers in 2025 listening to a lo-fi album made in someone's San Jose apartment on a 4-track cassette recorder? I think it's because Duster understood something about music that the industry has always tried to cover up. Imperfection is where the emotion lives. The fuzz on the guitars. The way the vocals are almost too quiet to hear. The songs that don't really go anywhere, they just drift. There's no polish, no production tricks, no attempt to make you feel something. The music just is, and you feel something anyway. Fans describe it as, all these songs have a strange ability to make me feel nostalgic for things that have never happened to me. Nostalgia for places you've never been. Memories of moments that didn't exist. That's an almost impossible thing to create, and Duster does it every single time. Your favorite indie band's favorite indie band. That's the reputation they've earned. And honestly, it fits. Duster never chased fame. They never had a strategy. They made the music they wanted to make, in a home studio, with cassette decks and analog gear, and they put it out into the world with almost no fanfare. And the world, eventually, found them anyway. That's the story of Duster. A band that disappeared and came back more relevant than ever, discovered by generations they never knew they were speaking to. If you haven't listened to Stratosphere yet, go do that right now. Just float through it. Don't think too hard. Let it do its thing. And if you liked this video, subscribe, because we've got a lot more stories like this one coming. Stories about bands that got it right before the world was ready to listen. See you next time.